Late, but we're here. Gold and Black Live Friday afternoon. It's been a couple weeks, and obviously the Boilermakers were off last week, and we did not have a show, but we're glad you're joining us today. Tom Dienhart, Brian Neubert, as you can read, are here. I want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day, stay at HGI tonight. Triple X on the hill, but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Guys, and I'll start with you, Tom. This is a big one for Purdue. I know you said we've talked kind of all week about the fact that this is not a lot of margin of error for the Boilermakers as they head into Big Ten play. Just because this is a team on paper Purdue can beat if Sindelar plays, all those factors.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later. But tell me what you think.
Yeah, exactly right. 1-2. Nobody envisioned, I think, a 1-2 start to the season, Alan. Purdue had a chance to catch its breath with an off week this last week. Probably good timing, right?
Yeah.
You talked about the injury situation for Purdue. Maybe some guys got healed up. Now they can sort of reset, and they've got the start of Big Ten play against a Minnesota team, like you said, that's beatable. Yes, they're 3-0, but I think their 3 wins are by a combined 13 points. Had to go double OT to beat Fresno State. Struggled to beat Georgia Southern. So still, Alan, they're going to be a tough team, but it's a team, like you said, I think Purdue probably could beat.
If at full strength. Brian?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest story, almost the singular story, is at what point do we see Purdue as close to full strength as they're going to be? I mean, it's already to the point where Purdue's defense is never going to be whole relative to what it should have been, because Marcus Bailey is not coming back. You know, you will get Lorenzo Neal back at some point, presumably, but offensively, the quarterback is Purdue's best chance. In my opinion, to win. Throwing it around, throwing the ball up the field, using the weapons they have around him to their maximum value. And until that group is whole, and that includes Matt McCann as well, because, that offensive line kind of is what it is with him. Without him, it's something, and even more of an acute concern, but we'll see what Purdue is when it's finally whole again, or as close to whole as it's going to be. That's the single biggest, as much as everyone loves us talking about injuries, that's the single biggest topic right now. I mean, if Purdue has Sindelar, if it has a relatively full complement of players, I would like its chances tomorrow. If
not,
it doesn't, things are dicey.
Yeah. And I also think that would be part of covering football, that injuries are a part of the deal. Jeff Brom has said that. In terms, you got to deal with them, and you got to move on if you're Purdue the best you can. All right, we did get a question. We do take questions on the show, so feel free to text them to us or put them in the chat room as well. You can also send them to us on Twitter. But a good question right off the bat: what's the future of Purdue's offensive line look like? Tom, I know you've covered, and Brian, you've covered it in recruiting as well. Obviously, a very, very young offensive line. Jeff Brom's talked about playing additional guys tomorrow, but is this a problem that can go away in a year with some level of experience in your view? But,
well, you would think, Alan, it's a young group. I've said time and again, there's only 2 seniors in the entire offensive line room right now. One's 5th-year senior Matt McCann, and the other is Alex Criddle, the starting left guard, who, of course, is just in his first year of playing offense. So, again, everybody else will be back next year. Still a relatively overall young group in 2020. Again, you'd like to think with maturity, with an off-season in the weight room, another off-season, another spring football in the playbook, that, yes, this offensive line should continue to get better with age.
But some of the freshmen that could play, that have worked their way into the 2 teams that may, Jimmy McKenna, some others.
Yeah, Jeff talked about that yesterday. DJ Washington, a redshirt sophomore guard, he thought had a chance to play a bit tomorrow. Jimmy McKenna, you talked about Allen, a redshirt freshman, who still needs to get stronger. Will Bramwell's already starting a redshirt freshman at right tackle.
And he's played about every player.
Yeah, he really has. Eric Miller, the backup left tackle, is just a redshirt freshman. He may see some reps. So those are some of the younger offensive linemen I think fans could keep an eye on moving forward. Of course, at center, too, is just a sophomore Victor Beach, who has a ways to go as well. So, again, those are some young guys to watch. I hear the coaching staff talk about, time and again.
Brian, in the recruiting game, obviously Purdue has 3 commits, offensive linemen in this class. Is that right? But tell me a little bit about what the playing field. It's been competitive offensive linemen historically. Purdue's only had 1 or 2 4-stars. You've corrected me every time about Ken Plew and Jason Kasinko, I think, are the only 2 4-star offensive line recruits we've had since Purdue's had since Rivals came about. But tell me about, just the nature of, there's a lot of competition for good offensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for an hour and a half about offensive
Well, the
line
show is
and
an hour,
college
so
football.
yeah.
But look, obviously, you want to recruit the best offensive lineman you can get. It is the hardest position to evaluate, probably, there is. The ones who are the easiest to evaluate are getting Ohio State, Michigan, and Alabama, and all of their ilk
Yeah.
on them. It is the position you do not recruit your way out of in a short period of time. You don't go recruit 5 really good offensive linemen in one class, put them on the field 6 months later, like you would a wide receiver or a running back or even a quarterback. Offensive line is a position where you have to find fit, you have to establish culture, you have to develop them, both in your strength program and your football program, and you can't be in situations where you have to put freshmen out there. If they're supremely talented freshmen, fine, that's better than the alternative. But you don't want to be young on the offensive line. It's the one position where you really don't want to be young. Maybe quarterback, you can make an argument for that more so. You don't want to be young on the offensive line. Purdue is young and inexperienced on the offensive line right now. They have been putting Band-Aids over this every year for the better part of a decade with graduate transfers, whatever it might be. That's obviously helped them, but it's not made them, something significantly more than they would have been otherwise. It's helped cover up a weakness more than it's become a strength. When Purdue's had its best offensive lines, they've kind of done things a little bit differently. They have found guys from defense. They've found guys from other positions. They've done some different things. They've looked at the offensive line a little bit different. I know Jeff Brom would rather have athleticism out there than sheer raw size and power from a pass protection standpoint. So how Purdue goes about this in recruiting, obviously we'll tell the tale of how this goes long term, but it's not something they're going to fix in 1 recruiting class, 2 recruiting classes, probably even 3 recruiting classes. It's something that over a long period of time, you have to get your operation established. It has to yield results. You have to get to the point where you're replacing juniors and seniors with juniors and seniors, not juniors and seniors with sophomores and freshmen. That can take a long period of time. In the meantime, one would think Purdue is not going to be exiting the graduate transfer market anytime soon. They wanted one badly this year. They didn't get one. Even if they'd gotten one, that's 20% of your offensive line, assuming that guy is a instant impact level player, for which there are no guarantees. But it is a complex, multi-layered issue. A lot goes into it, and I could talk all day long about it. But it's just something over a long period of time. Purdue has to hope it gets its recruiting to a place that where it wants to be, and then it gets its player development mechanisms up to where they need to be as well.
Yeah, and you look at in the last 2 years, you've had with David Steinmetz, Shane Evans, Dennis Edwards. If my memory is right, have been 3, but he didn't get one this year.
Before that, David Hedlund was a godsend, and Purdue only got him because their compliance people were more clever than a lot of other people, and they got him around his suspension in a cleaner fashion than Michigan State would have. Had that not been the case, Purdue wouldn't have gotten David Hedlund, who was basically an NFL-level offensive lineman who Purdue just got on a technicality, basically.
Yeah, and that's been back in the Hazel era.
Yeah,
right?
that was before.
Yeah, and that is, but that again, it's not an easy problem to solve and a frustrating one. If you're obviously a coaching staff trying to game plan and trying to figure out a way to run the football. I mean, historic. He wrote this week about Purdue's. It has been historic in terms, at least dating back to 2000, Purdue's start in terms of running the football. Only 150 yards rushing in 3 games. But I know Jackson Anthrop starting, but do you think that we all of us agree that Jackson Anthrop probably not going to get 15 touches carrying the football tomorrow? Do you still think you try to run, and maybe that's also dependent on your quarterback a little bit, do you try to scheme your way to running the football a little bit with Rondale Moore? What do you see tomorrow?
Yeah, I think Purdue may have to do just that, Alan, try to scheme a run game, because lining up and traditionally running the football, as we all know, is going to be a difficult thing for this team in 2019.
Yeah.
Nothing on the running backs, although we talked to Chris Barclay this week. He said sometimes his guys don't hit the hole as hard as he'd like.
Yeah.
So again, it's a combination of that line and those running backs. And And you talked about Jackson Antrim. Now he's going to be working out of the backfield a little bit. But again, don't get your hopes up, like you said. Not going to be a 15-carry guy. He's going to be used as a receiver out of the backfield, maybe a jet sweep guy, quick tosses, a change of pace back to a guy like Xander Horvath and King Doru.
And those, you expect those guys to play, the Doru
Yeah.
and
But
Horvath to
I
play.
think, like you talked about, the big key is going to be the quarterback. I mean, if it's Sinlar, I don't think Braum has any qualms with maybe totally abandoning the running game if he has to and throwing it 50 or 60 times to win it. But again, so much is going to depend on who that quarterback is on Saturday as far as how much they're going to have to try to rely on manufacture a run game.
Yeah. On to the topic of the quarterback, obviously there's been a lot talked about. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, the concussion protocol and all of that. We don't know for sure whether Elijah Sindelar will be in the starting lineup tomorrow. Can Purdue win without him? I mean, and what did you see out of Plummer a couple of weeks ago, Brian?
I saw a young quarterback who was put in a very difficult situation because we just mentioned
Yeah.
Purdue doesn't have a running game infrastructure around him. The defense couldn't stop the run. His first college game against a good defense, had he come out there against Mac Riffraff or
Yeah.
somebody like that, things are a little bit easier. I don't know when last week they had to fully commit to him as their starter. If it was only Thursday, one would think that, they didn't have a game plan, as complete a game plan for him as you might have had you known Monday, Tuesday, whatever it might have been. I think the bye week, came at the perfect time for this team, not only because they have to get healthy, but because if they have to plan for life with Jack Plummer at quarterback, this gave them an opportunity to take a deep breath with him, maybe put a few more things in, maybe for him to get more comfortable. That experience obviously matters for him. I think he did some positive things in that last game. I think anybody who watched that game and understands the context of the situation he was in would look at it and say that wasn't a total malfunction on his part in his first college appearance. I think, I think you would see a better player in this game, probably with more of a game plan suited for him, on top of whatever it was Purdue came up with during the bye week to generate some more offense around him. Purdue's got to manufacture some sort of ball control offense. I like to use the term ball control offense over running game because I think there's a difference, but they're kind of the same thing. I don't know if this is ever going to be a team that's going to traditionally run the ball the way people view traditional running game. They've got to be able to just move the chains, possess the ball, keep the defense off the field. It's all connected, and it would all support a young quarterback should the young quarterback have to play again. It's more about what's around Jack Plummer, to me, or as much about what's around Jack Plummer as it is Jack Plummer himself.
I would argue, and I agree. I mean, one of the things I think is a problem, though, is this is an extremely young team, and a lot of the seniors are not on the field. I mean, what seniors are right now? I mean, a couple, and that is a problem from a leadership's not maybe an overused word, but how do you deal with that if you want to have some level of stability in the huddle on both sides of the ball? I mean, it's hard to fix that problem.
Yeah, you don't have the fifth-year seniors on defense. Brian talked about Marcus Bailey, Lorenzo Neal.
Right.
That's two huge guys as far as leadership goes in that defensive huddle that are missing. Of course, Elijah Sindelar offensively, another fifth-year senior. So McCann's missing, another fifth-year senior. So, yeah, leadership could be an issue for Purdue on both sides of the ball. And going forward, some of the younger guys, I think a guy like Rondale Moore has to be respected in the locker room. His voice has to matter. And I imagine his teammates are going to listen to what he says. A guy like that maybe can step up and be a leader just as a true sophomore.
Yeah, and that will be a storyline that we'll be watching certainly. Now we're going to take a short break here and bring in somebody that can talk offensive line who's played on Big Ten offensive line. Of course, Kelly Kitchell will join us. We'll talk that. We'll see if he can still suit up. I think he'll say no to that, but we'll look forward to doing that. We're also going to talk about the Joe Tiller, the RV that you may have seen at Ross-Ade Stadium, around Ross-Ade Stadium, and a little bit about what he's doing to help get that sold and also be able to raise money for the National Football Foundation, the Joe Tiller chapter. So we'll take a short break, and we'll be back for our second segment of Gold and Black Live.